Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to I guess it's a video that's sort of been inspired by everything that's going on in the world. It is my 20 series to binge read video for those of you who are stuck at home at the moment and who are taking the opportunity to read as much as you can, which I think is really, really great. This is the video for you. So I'm going to share with you 20 of my favorite series, whether they be duologies, middle grade, young adult, adult series. There's a variety of genres here. Most of them you'll be very familiar with because I talk about them all the time, but these are the series that I think are well worth sitting down and just taking the opportunity when you're at home to read as many of them as you can. The first series I'm going to recommend is the Kingdom of Silk series by Glenda Millard. The books begin with the naming of Tishkin Silk, and while you can read these books independent of each other, I would recommend starting at the beginning. There are 7 books total and it follows the Silk family, and this is a family that has a number of girls and one son, Griffin. And the first book deals with Griffin having to deal with the grief and the loss of a younger sister. And I have always referred to these books as my happy sad books because there are very sad elements in it. They are real life, they reflect things that happen to families every day, but they have so much hope, so much heart, and so much love within the Silk family that it makes the books really happy as well. So even though you know there are sad things happening, you can't help but be joyful by the end of the book. And all of the books deal with things from grief, loss, to chronic illness and chronic pain, to growing older, adoption. All of these things come into play in all of the books. They are very short, they are beautiful reads. I highly recommend them. I have no idea how I'm going to hold up this next series. This is not good. Okay, this is the Skullduggery Pleasant series, and this isn't even all of the books. There are still 2 more on my shelf, but they are the short story collections, so I just thought I would pull out the main books, of which there are now 13 of them, and I'm going to put them down because they're heavy. Okay, so Skullduggery Pleasant series is a middle grade fantasy series. This is the first book, which is the self-titled Skullduggery Pleasant book, and it is sort of an urban fantasy world-ish. It's very Harry Potter in terms of its setup, in that you have the fantasy world overlaid over the real world, and the main character, Stephanie, is a regular girl. At the start of the first book, her uncle dies and she gets introduced to one of his friends, the very mysterious Skullduggery Pleasant. And as it turns out, she finds herself being wrapped up in a fantasy mystery and uncovering a fantasy world that she never knew existed. And the story goes from there, and it becomes darker and more complex as the books go on, but it is my favorite middle grade fantasy book, hands down. I love it. It is so funny. Well worth reading. My final middle grade recommendation, which no one will be surprised about, is the Lockwood & Co series, which this sort of straddles the middle grade young adult category, so choose your readers wisely. But this is a horror / paranormal series about young teens who are ghost hunters in a world where suddenly ghosts have come back and can harm the living, but only children up to a certain age can sense them. Adults can't sense them, but they can be hurt by them. So it is up to the children of the world to be recruited to actually fight and return the ghosts. So great series, really fun. Okay, moving on to some more YA recommendations. I'm going to go with the Monsters of Verity duology by B.E. Schwab, beginning with The Savage Song and Our Dark Duet. This is a series where when a violent crime results in a violent death, monsters are created. They actually physically are created and come to exist in the world, and these monsters have different abilities and different strengths and weaknesses and all sorts of things, and they have a tendency to attack the population. We follow 2 characters, Kate, who is a human who does some very monstrous things, and you also have August, who wants to be human but he isn't, and we don't quite find out what he is until the end of the first book. The whole story is just really, really fascinating, and I love the concept that V.E. Schwab came up with, this idea that tragic, traumatic, violent deaths can cause monsters. I think I loved this Savage Song more than Our Dark Duet, but it was definitely a series that I really enjoyed, and it's only 2 books long. The Diviners series by Libba Bray, which is super chunky and perfect for sitting down and reading because it's now complete, beginning with The Diviners. And this is a alternate 1920s New York that has paranormal elements and teenagers who have weird psychic abilities and different powers, fighting off a villain called the King of Crows. I mean, what's not to like about that? The Circus Hutch trilogy by Ellie Marney. This is a Love Oz YA-ish. Some of the characters are a fraction older than that, so actually it's probably not really YA, but you know, whatever. This is a set of stories that take place in a circus environment, and each book follows 2 different characters. They're sort of mystery romance books, and they're really fantastic. As the stories went on, I enjoyed them more and more. I love coming back to them. They're super short, very easy to read, And I mean, I just have a thing for circus stories anyway, so I was always going to like these. The Illuminate Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, a Lover's Way science fiction series. I mean, everyone has heard about these. These are the books that are told in multimedia format because you have dossiers and letters and transcripts and all sorts of things. These books are really great to read while listening to the audiobook, which are like mini movies for your ears because you have a full cast audio complete with sound effects, and they are just fabulous. And despite the size, they go really, really fast. If you like your YA historical paranormal fiction books, because why not across a whole lot of different genres, there is the Lady Helen series by Alison Goodman. This is Lover's YA. This is basically like Buffy in Regency London, and it's great. And finally, for my YA recommendations, something light and easy to read is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is a so far trilogy. There are going to be more books, I suspect. This is a so far 3-book graphic novel series about 2 boys who fall in love and have to learn to deal with their relationship and how other people perceive them and their own personal issues. I think there are tie-ins to some of Alice Oseman's novels through these books, but I haven't read the one that this series is tied into. But still, they're great. They're very easy to read. The art style is beautiful, and if you get to the end of this one, I believe that it is still being updated online and you can read it for free. So even if you don't have the books, you can read the whole series for free online. And moving into my adult recommendations, the first one that I couldn't help but recommend is the Wayfarer series by Becky Chambers, beginning with The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. These are science fiction books that are set in space. Each book follows slightly different characters, but the world is interconnected. The first book follows the crew of the Wayfarer, which is a bit of a motley crew of humans and aliens, as they make a journey across the universe to a planet that is on the verge of war. Their job is to punch holes in space and create laneways basically for other ships to travel, but in order to do that, they have to go the long way around to create the passageway on either end. And along the way, we just fall in love with all of the characters and we learn why they are the way they are and why they act the way they do. It is just great. If you want some adult romance books that are just delightfully entertaining, the Nola Nights series by Thea DeSalle that begins with The King of Bourbon Street is really, really good and just very sexy and set in New Orleans, and was just a delightful, fun afternoon read on the couch. I read through all 3 books really, really quickly and really enjoyed them. I'm currently reading the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs at the time of filming. I'm 5 books in, absolutely loving it. It is definitely a series that you could just pick up one book after the other and keep reading them. It is an urban fantasy series about Mercy Thompson, who is a mechanic and a coyote shifter. She was raised in a werewolf pack and she lives next door to the local werewolf Alpha, and she finds herself embroiled in all sorts of paranormal creature politics between the werewolves and the fae and the vampires, and it is just a delightfully fun world to be in. If you're looking for a highly, highly entertaining read, I do recommend the Ice Planet Barbarian series by Ruby Dixon, which is a sci-fi romance series of, they're basically novella-length stories about a ship of women who have been, I mean, the first part's not great. They've been kidnapped by aliens and then that ship crash lands on this ice planet. It is like the fated mates trope, but it is just ridiculous and highly entertaining. And if you're just looking even for a laugh, they're a great read. The Aaron Falk series by Jane Harper, beginning with The Dry and then Force of Nature. They are really fantastic Australian crime novels that just encapsulate Australia beautifully. And Aaron Falk is a really great lead character. He is an Australian federal police officer who in the first book goes back home to a small country town after the death of a childhood friend, and there he sort of gets caught up in what actually happened to his friend and things that have impacted on the town, and his past sort of catches up with him as well. And I think the whole story was just beautifully told and was just very, very atmospheric, and Jane Harper does great work. So well worth checking out any of her books, but definitely the Aaron Falk series. Another adult science fiction series that you might be interested in is The Themis Files by Sylvain Neuvel, beginning with Sleeping Giants. This is another really great one to listen to on audiobook as well, because they do have a full cast audio. And this is about a young girl who finds a giant metal hand in the ground when she falls through a hole. I think, when is it, around her 11th birthday or something like that. This of course causes a bit of a stir and everyone begins studying this metal hand. Where did it come from? It's not a metal from Earth. No one knows who made it. It's very old. And as this child grows up, she begins to become one of the lead researchers studying this phenomenon. And you can't really say much more than that because it's really worth going into this series not knowing more than that. But it was just really great, and it explores a whole lot of things from politics to people's beliefs about science and aliens and technology, and it was just really great. The Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire, beginning with Every Heart a Doorway, is a series of urban fantasy portal doorway novellas. I'm just throwing words out here now. It's really getting a bit ridiculous. But these are really short, really easy to read stories about children who have gone through portal doorways, a bit like Alice in Wonderland, only to be returned to Earth. And after they return to Earth, things aren't quite right for them because the worlds that they went through were the perfect worlds for them. They fit their personality type really well, and yet they've been rejected and sent home, and they don't really cope with that. And so the children that we meet are sent to Eleanor West's home for wayward children, and Eleanor West herself went through a doorway, and so she started this school in order to either help these children integrate back into the world as best they can, or to look after them long enough to find their doorway back to their homeworld. And it's just fantastic. I just finished reading Come Tumbling Down, which I think might be one of my favorite books in the series. Right, the next 3 series, you're not going to be surprised about me recommending you binge read them, because that's what I did with them. So there is the Kate Daniels series by Ilona Andrews, which is an urban fantasy series about Kate Daniels, who lives in Atlanta. And this is a world where part of the time the world exists as it has always done, with technology and cars working normally and technology working normally. But then there are magic surges, and when the magic rises, the rest of the technology in the world sort of shuts down. And so people have learned to live in both a technological age and a magic age. And when the magic rises, you have a rise in magical creatures who sort of slip through into the real world and cause a bit of havoc. The whole thing is really great. You have shapeshifters in this world, you have magical creatures, you have mercenaries, you have knights who hunt down the magical creatures. I mean, the whole thing is just really delightful, and as you get further and further in the books, the world gets built up, and it's just great. I really, really want to go back and binge read this series. Next up is the Guild Hunters series by Nalini Singh. Now, I don't have all of the books in physical copy. Most of them are on my Kindle, but these are the ones that I have managed to find and collect. The first book in the series is Angel's Blood, which I don't actually have here. In the Guild Hunters world, you have a world that is ruled by archangels, and the archangels are served by vampires, and then you have regular humans. When vampires are created, they have to serve a 100-year service bond to the angels, and if they decide to skip out on that, then the guild is called in, and Elena, our main character, is a member of the guild, and she is one of the people who is sent out to hunt down vampires who have shirked their duties. She is one day called to the tower in New York, which is the base of the Archangel Raphael, and he is one of the most powerful archangels in existence, and he has requested her specifically for a job hunting down something very big and bad. These are paranormal romance books. They do have more of an urban fantasy spin on them, but there is pretty much a heavy focus on the romance element between Elena and Raphael, and in later books, members of Raphael's close team and their respective partners. But the whole thing is just delightfully fun and entertaining, and I love a good angel book, and this one has certainly upped the expectations for me when I'm reading books about angels, so it's a series that I love. The last series I'm going to recommend is another Nalini Singh series, and that is the Psy Changeling series, which again is paranormal romance and features a wide cast of characters. The first book is Slave to Sensation, and in the Psy Changeling universe you have 3 discrete groups of individuals. You have the humans, you have the Psy, who are humans with psychic abilities, and you have the changelings, who are humans who can shift into various animal forms. And Slave to Sensation, we meet the leopard pack, and then we also spend quite a bit of time with the Snow Dancer clan, which is a wolf pack. And we also spend time with various Psy. All of the Psy are connected to each other in what's called the Psy-net, but strange things are happening in the Psy-net, and even though they have been ruled for many years by silence, this training that basically keeps their emotions in check to stop them from going crazy and on killing sprees, because the Psy have very, very dangerous abilities. Something's happening in the Psy-net, and various Psy find it difficult to remain in the Psy-net, and they begin to form attachments and emotions and have to figure out how this actually works in the world that they're in without compromising the safety of others around them. The whole series is just great. It's really hard to describe. You've got it, and you do sort of have to read this series in order, because even though each book follows different characters, all the different characters pop back in and all of the storylines interconnect, and there is a very big overarching thread. There are currently 18 or 19 books in the series. I'm up to date, and the next book is coming out later in the year. I can't wait for it. But yes, I've been rereading various books in this series for a while now because they are just so fun. Okay, so those are the 20 book series that are worth binge reading. And it's a lot. I now am going to have to spend like an hour putting my bookshelves back in order for pulling all of those books off the shelf. But that's okay, because hopefully you got at least one series out of that recommendation list that you might like to read. In the comments below, let me know the series that you believe are worth binge reading. If you are in self-isolation at the moment, I hope that you are doing well. I hope you're staying safe. It's a really scary time, but I hope that you are looking after yourselves and taking care of you. You are the most important person, and your family, if you have them. But you also need to look after yourself before you can look after others. I hope this video has helped some of you, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.